Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about Jasmy because frankly we're seeing a pretty weird market right now, but there's something that I'm seeing kind of Jasmy being in the beginning stages of that I think is honestly pretty comparable to XRP, and so I want to talk about it, exactly what that is, why it's so important, and in my opinion it honestly might be the most important thing about Jasmy and its ecosystem and whatnot. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about that, but also to start out I want to go over the kind of the state of the market, how things are looking right now. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting out, what we can see on the crypto bubbles, we've seen a pretty nice pump kind of throughout the entire market. We can see Bitcoin actually down just a tiny bit over the past day, but basically everything up a decent amount. Almost no red here. Hex is a little bit red and Bitcoin is also a little bit red. Other than that, basically everything green. It also looks like Monero is very, very slightly red too. But I mean, Ethereum, it's blocked by my picture, but Ethereum's up 3.6%. You can see ICP up 8.3%. Jasmy, the topic of today's discussion, 7.2%. Virtual is seeing a really, really nice pump, up 34%. We did talk about this a couple days back, looking kind of into the pullback of the market. So you could have potentially found some virtual at a pretty nice discount overall, if that was one that you were taking a look at. Helium up pretty nicely as well. Solana also. Sui another 8.4%. Things moving pretty well. If we do look at the weekly though, we are still down, and we're down pretty heavy on the week. We can see that virtual did flip to positive, but basically everything else is looking negative. We can see Sui looks like they also flipped to positive, just barely on the week also. But we can see, I mean, still some pretty strong pullbacks kind of everywhere. Bitcoin down 11.5%, Solana 12%. We can see ICP 16% here. Ethereum also blocked by my picture again, but 15.6%. So, I mean, things, even Jasmy here, not minus 21. So things on the week still not looking particularly great, even though we have seen a little bit of kind of a nice relief rally going on here. Now, moving on to the Jasmy chart, I want to take a look at something pretty interesting. So obviously we could see, not much volume, not much price action. We saw a really, really nice move to the upside. And then we did see kind of a retrace back to this first level of support, which we did eventually break through. It looked like we were kind of holding in this wedge and this kind of like upper trend line. We could see it was holding the upper trend line here, and then it kind of came back and sat on this upper trend line as well. It was forming that wedge. As I always mention, when it forms the wedge, it kind of can happen either way, where we can break an up or down. But usually when we see an ascending wedge like this, more often than not, it is going to break down. Given that we had seen so much positive price movement, I would say maybe it was a little bit more likely that we could see a break to the upside. But usually when we see that, there's essentially a consistent level of resistance here that we continually cannot get through. We see price consolidate, and then it does eventually break down. We can see right now we have come basically about a 50% back, which is what I did say was a very likely possibility, particularly with these smaller altcoins that are not in the top, let's say 20% or top 20 places, excuse me. Usually we do see a pullback of about 50% from top to bottom. This one, if we count this wick down, was a little bit more than that, but that is something that does happen now and again. We can see it's kind of found some support on this level of support right here. Previously, these were some pretty decent range tops here, so this should be a somewhat decent level of support. In my opinion, for Jasmy to continue to kind of hold its strength, I do think we need to see this support kind of stay pretty reliable. If we do see a break down from this support, not really the best move or the best news in my opinion. Obviously, things change all the time, and that's not like a death mark or anything like that, but I do think, for Jasmy to be showing some pretty strong strength in what I would be considering a pretty strong project going into alt season, I would want to see this level of support. And obviously, potentially coming back up even to this level would be great news, of course, but mainly we want to see kind of holding at this kind of 50% retrace, in my opinion, is kind of the best thing for us to see. Now, if you are interested in trading Jasmy, ICP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, anything for that matter, feel free to use my link in the description below. I am still working with BTCC. They are offering that 10% bonus on first time deposits, which in my opinion is a really, really great deal. This is in addition for the up to $10,055 in bonuses. So this is something that is kind of happens for everybody who's a new user, but the 10% bonus on first time deposits is something that you get specifically for using my link to sign up. So if that is something that you are interested in, I'd say feel free to do that. If you're looking for a new place to trade, in my opinion, a 10% bonus seems like a pretty good deal if you ask me. So overall, pretty good. What I would say is BTCC is kind of a really nice place to trade because they have been around for 13 years. So you don't have to worry about them being like a here today, gone tomorrow type of exchange, like is unfortunately all too common within the crypto space. 300 plus crypto futures, which is really great. They also have tokenized stocks and commodities, which I think is pretty cool, especially if you're trying to get exposure to some more of the traditional finance world within the crypto space. Up to 500x leverage. Again, I would strongly discourage any sort of leverage up to this amount. It's just way too much, in my opinion. Anything above 10 to 20x is really, like, I would say, unnecessarily risky. You really need to know what you're doing. And frankly, you kind of really need to know what you're doing to be using leverage at all. So just make sure you're being careful there. BTCC does just do spot exchanges as well if you're not looking to trade any leverage. So keep that in mind. You don't have to trade leverage to use BTCC. They have tons of flexible options if that's something you're interested in doing. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary if this is something that's important to you. So like I said, just feel free to use my link in the description below to get signed up if you're looking for a new place to trade. Now, moving on, one thing I want to talk about Jasmy that I think is really important is, I would say, the level of insanity in the community. Now, this may sound like a bad thing, but let me explain for a second, because I do think it does make sense when we think about it a little bit. So what we can see on CoinGecko, we're sitting here currently at the 81st spot, about 1.6 billion in total market cap, looking pretty good. If we look at market cap to fully diluted valuation at 0.97, basically meaning we're almost fully diluted. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, as we can see with some of these that have run pretty hard so far this market, we can see Say doing pretty well, only at 0.42. Move, this is one that's run super hard, only at 0.23. If we continue on, Celestia's moved pretty decent this run, 0.42. Optimism, 0.31. Continue moving up, we can see Athena. This has been another one that's been moving pretty dramatically, 57% in the past 30 days, 0.2. Continuing up, we can see a couple others here and there. There's a couple others up here. Hyperliquid, 0.33. We can see Sui, 0.29. We've talked basically about a lot of these. They've all moved really hard to the upside, which obviously, it is a good thing to see. But what we can see is they're all super low in the ratio of market cap to FDV, which means that they have a ton to unlock. So this is something that Jasmy doesn't necessarily have a problem of, because we can see they're almost fully diluted. What the coins that are out there are the coins that just exist, which obviously is a good thing, because we're not going to have any of that built-in innate selling pressure, which is a good thing. But also it is tough, because this usually means that the coin is more well distributed than some of these others that have super tight supply. When some of these, like for example, let's take Move, we've seen it move very dramatically to the upside over the past even just week. But that's because so much of the supply, well, first off, there's so little circulating supply, and very likely so much of that initial circulating supply is held within a few concentrated hands. So it's really easy to kind of move price and manipulate price when there's one, a low float, and two, very few people hold it. Now, with something like Jasmy, with such a well-distributed coin, there's going to be more liquidity within the market to sell, which means prices aren't going to move as hard one direction or the other, and you can't play games with the price, I guess, for lack of a better word, because people are going to, essentially it's a free, fair, open market, and if it's well distributed, if it goes up 100%, you might have more people taking profits than if there's, the vast majority of the coins held within one whale's wallet or something, and they just aren't going to sell because, they have insider information or whatever, or maybe they just don't want to sell because they don't want to sell, and they have the ability to make that decision because they're aiming for 100x or whatnot. So this is the difference with Jasmy coin. Now, what I want to talk about with comparing this to XRP is because, in my opinion, XRP should not be valued what it's valued at. I think it's disgustingly overvalued. It should not be at over $100 billion, in market cap, but it is. Right? And it is because the community, in my opinion, is a little bit nuts. And if they don't sell and people want to buy, what happens? Price goes up. That's just how it goes, right? And so I think that's something that Jasmy could learn from the XRP community of essentially we give all these crazy price targets, 20 billion, 50 billion. If it hits $1, it would be a $50 billion market cap. Well, if the community cumulatively is essentially focused on, yes, we're going to hit $1 and nobody sells, but people still want to buy, price goes up, right? I mean, this is the dynamics of basically every market ever. Now, obviously in a true or a fundamentally sound market, typically Jasmy would be releasing news, information, products, information, data, financial, essentially performance, all of this type of stuff that would essentially increase the value of Jasmy, and therefore the buying pressure would be going up. That is typically what happens in a standard stock market, you could say, right? If a stock has good earnings and they say, oh yeah, earnings went up 40%, you guys were only expecting 20, and we're expecting through the rest of the year we should see earnings up even 50% past that. The price of the stock's going to go up because the stock is earning more. Now in crypto, things are a little bit different because usually most of these companies aren't earning anything. It's a lot more speculative speculative based on the valuation of like future outcomes, right? So for example, if we're looking at Jasmy specifically, they have a lot of deals and arrangements worked out with the Japanese government and whatnot that could potentially give them a pretty strong foothold of like moving Japan into like the Web3 space, right? And so if that were to play out well, they obviously be a massively valued company, which is why people would be buying in now, because they're expecting or they're speculating on that to actually kind of come to fruition in the future. However, there is the other side of that, which is speculation. If the community as just a whole continues to value their coins more highly and people are willing to buy at that raised price, obviously price is going to accelerate faster than what we would see otherwise. We've seen XRP is basically a perfect example of this, right? They've gone up 200, 300, 400% in the past month or so, primarily because, in my opinion, it seems like there's a ton of people that are wanting to buy, particularly retail, let's be honest, but there's a ton of people who are wanting to buy, but nobody wants to sell because they think XRP is going to $3 or $5 or any of these kind of outrageous targets that we see. Well, what's happened? I mean, it's almost hit $3 because that's what people in the community are generally expecting. Now, with Jasmy, obviously, we would throw price targets of, well, it's going to hit 6 cents, and then it might hit 13, and then from there it might be 31, and then it's got like the road to the dollar, right? Well, if everybody essentially was just like, well, I'm not selling till $1, then there's going to be less supply on the market to actually sell. Now, obviously, this is kind of like a game theory type of thing. Well, if somebody says, they're going to sell at $1, well, the next person might sell at 99 cents, and the next person selling at 98 cents, and now we get to where we are, follow that down long enough, and we get to the 3.4 cents. But essentially, I just want to talk a little bit about just, again, something to think about. There's not a whole lot we can do necessarily like individually other than promise ourselves we're going to hold for longer, I guess. But you do also need to make the better decision of essentially making sure you're staying like not over leveraged. If you do have 50 million Jasmy in it and it goes up 100%, maybe it does make sense to sell, right? And obviously this is what makes markets work. So the main thing I think we can kind of count on and rely on is the Jasmy team to continue to deliver, bring us good information, good news, a good product, most importantly, and then obviously that is going to make the Jasmy ecosystem more valuable. However, I did want to point out that there is kind of that secondary and, I would say primarily like minor influencing factor. I guess we could say in XRP's case, I would call it a major influencing factor, probably the primary influencing factor. But there is that in other cryptos, that minor influencing factor of the community. How insane are they? If everybody thinks Jasmy is going to $10 and nobody sells until it gets to $10, then it'll probably get to $10 a lot quicker as long as there is that sustained buying pressure. Now that's kind of the other side of the coin, right? Obviously we need this sustained buying pressure. So hopefully you found the information in this video useful. Sometimes I like to talk about kind of what makes markets and some of the game theory behind that and how essentially the community can influence the outcome of their coin, all of that type of stuff. But if you did find it interesting and useful, please do give me a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, anything like that, just feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be really helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.